world right now?
I I am in Atlantic City in a hotel room, the New Jersey CPA Society conference,
Ah, where's home for you?
Northern California in the wine country.
Nice, not bad.
How about you?
I am in Boulder, Colorado. Lived
Ah,
here
beautiful
quite a bit of
place.
time. I'm heading to Scaling New Heights next week.
Skating.
Yeah.
Be there.
Yeah.
Yep. You'll run into Ed Kless, my co-host on the radio show that we do, but I won't be there, but Ed will.
Awesome. And
How
Andrew,
about you, Andrew?
Yeah.
Ontario, Canada.
Okay.
About an hour from Ottawa, Montreal. So in between there, that's where we're at. So yeah, I have a conference in Toronto, QuickBooks Connect, in week and a half. I'm not going to New Scaling Heights. I find June is always so hectic. It's so crazy. We have our team retreat next week. So
Fun.
I'm taking a nice little cottage in Quebec for a few days. So it'll be fun.
How big's the team?
9. Yeah, 9 of us right now. So
Are you doing an overnight retreat?
oh yeah, we're there from Monday night till Friday morning.
Fun.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
great.
I'm hiring a private chef for us.
Mhm.
It's gonna be fun. It's our third retreat, so it's always a blast.
Love that. We have our first retreat coming up at the end of July as well. We haven't planned all the details yet, though.
Oh, it's so fun. It's just like every time we have a retreat, I feel like our team is so much closer than it was the week before. It's just unbelievable. And the amount of fun and stories and memories we get to build from it is just, I love it. I'm so excited for next week. So
Love
That's
it.
great.
See some people joining from Vancouver, Florida. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Dorothy.
Yeah, Kathy. Andrew, I'll be in Toronto at Account Tax in November.
nice. I'm sure you do a lot of conferences, right, Ron? Like I could
Yeah,
like 1 to 2 a month almost is like your average probably.
yeah, sometimes more.
Yeah. That's a lot. That's a lot of traveling.
I'm used to it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do you like in Canada? I try to do train at least between like Quebec and Ontario as much as I can, but I'm assuming obviously you're flying to every single like. Do you ever drive to any of the conferences instead of
No,
flying?
I've driven in Canada before from conference to conference internally, but
Yeah,
I would and I've driven through the Canadian Rockies,
it's
which are
yeah,
amazing. I mean,
amazing.
I hate
Yeah.
to say it, Stacey, but they make our Rockies look like molehills. The Canadian Rockies are grand. I mean, they
Yeah,
are amazing.
they're just
Uh,
massive. Yeah.
my
I love
dad's driven across Canada. He loves it.
I lived in the Pacific Northwest and loved it as well, getting up to Canada. And yeah, I think it gives Colorado a good run for its money.
I think
We got
Seattle's one of our greatest cities.
we got some good chat coming in, people from all over: Maryland, Arkansas, San Diego, Florida. We've got Roman from France.
Right on.
So welcome everyone. We'll get started in about a minute here, and we're excited to have everyone join. Looks like from a bunch of different places.
Yeah, agreed, Tosin. Banff is gorgeous. I'll tell you another great city, Jasper. You been to Jasper, Andrew?
Haven't been yet. No, that's one of my
Ah,
bucket lists. Like
I was
I
blown away. Maybe it was the ride up there, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
yeah, I just heard nothing but amazing things. I think that's one of my next few years for sure.
Love it. Well, we should be getting started here shortly. Yeah, I think Andrew, you probably brought in a lot of these Canadians in the chat here.
We're everywhere.
Uh,
We love our
Right on.
pricing. We love our automation.
and love our niching. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. We are here today for Empowering Growth, talking about scaling our accounting practices strategically. We've got a really great panel of people here. We're excited to chat. I'm your host, moderator, Stacey Feldman. I'm a CPA and COO at Full Send Finance. And we've got both Ron Baker and Andrew Seguin. Pronounce that properly with
Nailed
the
it.
accent. Most of you may know Ron. He's a radio talk show host, writer, founder of Versage Institute. And he's working to help firms bury the billable hour. Love that. And Andrew, founder of Seguin Finnacial, cloud-based bookkeeping and tax firm located in Canada. I'd love each of you to give a little intro to yourselves, hear a little bit more about your firms, your practice, and some of the key highlights you're looking at in the next year or so. Ron?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm Ron Baker. I'm a recovering CPA. I started my career in a Big 8 accounting firm. That's how you carbon date us. You listen to whether I say Big 8, Big 6, Big 5, Big 4, and then started my own firm, realized that the billable hour was a pretty lousy customer experience, which, as we all know, is really important to have a great customer experience. And we started experimenting with fixed pricing in 1989 before anybody on the circuit was talking about it. There were no books, there were no courses you could take, there was nothing. But we just thought it was the right thing to do for the customer because every other business did it. We said, well, what makes us so special that we can't give a fixed price? So we did it, made every mistake under the sun, but we stuck with it because the customers loved it. It enabled us to get rid of tracking time, got rid of timesheets, which of course the team loved. And I was so excited about it. I wrote a book about it. The book kind of took off worldwide, and here I am. The rest is kind of history.
I love that. I'm born in 1989. So it's like, while you're doing all this, I'm just, being born. It's great. Yeah. So I'm Andrew Seguin. So I run a bookkeeping and tax firm in Ontario, Canada. We're a team of 9 staff. My journey, I went to school for accounting, college, but I was working on a nonprofit for about 6 years full time, and loved my work, but I was sort of hitting a plateau in regards to what I wanted to do. Like I felt that I could provide more regarding to like my financial background and my passion, but was sort of stuck in regards to what I actually could do and promotion, so on. So I had like 2 bookkeeping clients on the side doing very, very small work, quit my full-time job, and then just started doing it. And that was 6.5 years ago. And it's been an amazing journey since. Made a lot of mistakes, made some awesome colleagues and friends, and it's such an amazing journey. And this industry is just awesome to work in. So been very grateful and very spoiled in the last 6.5 years. And Stacey, yourself. Yeah, please. I want to hear more about on your end.
Sure. Yes. I am a CPA by trade. I grew up in startups. So I started my career working at a startup that took off from 0 to 300 million in revenue. So as you can imagine, a lot of lessons learned in that process of how to grow and scale the finance function. And from there, I went to a few different startups in the controller seat, working a lot with systems, automation, figuring out ways to do a lot with a little. And from there, I had a passion for startups and wanted to work with them. And the best way to do that is now on this consulting side. So about a little over a year ago, I joined my partner, Roman Villard from Full Send Finance, and we're growing and building the company from the ground up. We're about in our 2nd year of business now. We have just about 7 employees across accounting, and now our newest venture is in the data side of things. And we service clients that are 0 to 50 million in revenue range. And primarily what we want to work with is our clients who want to grow, want to automate, and want to build their own infrastructure for scale. So we want to work with people who want to be better themselves.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat. I think I want to go over just a little bit of housekeeping for the participants here. Please use the Q&A. I'm trying to monitor different questions as they come up. I'll be monitoring the Q&A section for actual questions that we can answer throughout the session. Please have separate conversations in the chat, talk to one another, say where you're from. But other than that, we're going to talk today about different strategies to scale accounting firms. We're going to keep it conversational, ask each other questions, bounce back and forth. But primarily what we want to focus on is how we can leverage niching, automation, and pricing for scaling finance firms. So with that, I'd love to chat. I want to get a little bit more background from you, Ron, on, having been in the business in the field for such a long time. I'd love to get a sense of what some of those key milestones were across your career to identify when it was time to change prices or change the process, or whether it was time to grow and scale. Would you have any of those like key moments that stick out to you across your career?
Yeah, it was it was when we started our own firm and realized that the billable hour was a lousy customer experience. But we did it backwards, you guys. I didn't start with strategy and positioning. I dove right into the pricing and changed our pricing, which ultimately changed our strategy and our position in the marketplace. But I've learned since that it should be the other way around. You, for example, you first have to determine if your firm is Morton's Steakhouse or McDonald's. They both sell beef, but their positioning in the market is completely different. And until you figure that out, you can't determine a pricing strategy. So your overall strategy, your firm strategy has to be devised first. And I will talk about this when we get into niching, but I did it backwards. And today I'm preaching the exact opposite. Figure out your strategy first and your positioning in the market, where you want to play, what plays to your strengths, where can you flourish, and then that determines your pricing strategy.
How did you know to change up pricing or make pricing better when at the time?
We got so many complaints from customers. They'd get an invoice, they'd either call or come in angry. Why didn't you tell me it was going to be this much? And my only response, you guys, was I spent the time. Here's my timesheet. Well, they don't care about the time. And it dawned on me. I was talking to my partner. I said, why is it that we only find out the customer doesn't like the price after we've done all the work?
You're
We've
right.
already done the work. What I'd rather find out beforehand. Maybe there's a different way to do the work that we could do at a lesser price or a more agreeable price. But once we do the work, now we're on our knees begging to get paid. So there were write downs, there were write offs. When anytime you wrote off and the customer stayed, the relationship took a hit, the trust. And I didn't like that. And I said, we got to start doing fixed prices. And we just dove in, had no idea what we were doing, but stuck with it, and it worked tremendously.
How long?
Ron,
Oh,
I was gonna say, sorry. I was say, was there a moment where you knew when you made that transition that like this is it, like this is actually changing pretty much how we think about pricing, how we think about the relationship with the client? Was there like a eureka moment in that like time
Yeah,
frame?
a burning bush moment. It was kind of gradual, but as I rolled it out, and I rolled it out to current customers first, thinking that I had a relationship with them. They knew me. They hated the way I billed them. And when I did my first fixed price agreement, it was done in a bar on the 19th hole on a golf course. And a very savvy businessman who was kind of a mentor to me because he was so good at what he did, he looked at me and he said, "It's about time." And then when I did my second one, they told me the same thing. And I said, our customers are loving this. We're the ones that are screwed up. We have to get our head right. And we just stuck with it for that reason, even though we made every mistake you can imagine.
Andrew, with you starting your firm 6.5 so years ago, did you start out with hourly billing, value-based pricing? What's your price journey looked like?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I was so fortunate to have such great resources starting 6.5 years ago, between Ron, Mark, Facebook groups, that I knew that I didn't want to dictate our pricing conversation with an hourly rate. I was very fortunate and grateful to know that like perception on the client's end is very important in the early stages. Like for instance, if I said I wanted to charge $80 an hour, let's just say that was a goal of mine, and I'm going to tell a client, yeah, I'll do about 10 hours of work a month on your file, so about $800 a month. All they're looking at initially is that $80 an hour. They sort of start forgetting, ignoring what we're going to provide regarding our services. But if you change the conversation and say, we're charging you $800 and this is the scope of work we're providing, they don't really see the hourly rate that's baked within. They're seeing, oh, $800 a month. That's pretty good from what I'm getting. And I was fortunate enough to have amazing resources online to know, okay, I should not be charging hourly, even though internally I want to attain towards a minimum threshold of like, I need to do at least X dollars per hour to make it sort of worth it and exciting for me. This really allowed me to have really strong conversations in the early beginnings of my sort of journey as a founder. And I never once, even to this today, charge any of our work except consulting work on an hourly basis. Every single thing we do has always been value fixed pricing, with catch-up jobs, taxes, bookkeeping, anything. It's been really, really good relationship building with our clients because of that too.
Fred posed a good question in the chat of whether or not you still need to communicate that hourly rate for out of scope work or the consulting work that you're having with clients. How do you manage that scope creep and or fixed price contracts?
That's a really good question. So we still outline an out of scope sort of work in regards to our engagement letter, because I think it's really, really important. And we might dive into this later on today, but it's really important to outline a scope of work when you're pricing a client, right? These are the services that we're providing. And very often scope creep is a reality, right? We all know that they're asking questions, they're wanting to do things that is not really something you're either comfortable with, have experience in, or even want to do, but you feel you don't want to hurt that relationship. So you're like, okay, fine, I'll take it on, and you eat the cost, and you don't feel good inside. So we are definitely make it aware that, like, this out of scope rate, in this case on our engagement letter, is $125 an hour. And there's a clear outline that, like, if they're asking for things outside of that scope of work, they will potentially, and we can make that decision, right? We might say, it took 20 minutes. It's fine. We'll eat it because it's such a good relationship. But if that client continue to ask things over and over and over again, then, hey, this is fair game at this point. And it's a really good question. I think you need to protect your own time when you are pricing out that engagement letter with the client.
And
Yeah,
just on that, you guys, I would say that we hit this wall pretty early when we started doing this out of scope things. And I kind of looked around and said, well, there's other industries that deal with scope creep. How do they do it? How do auto mechanics do it? They're always telling me I've got something else wrong with my car every time I take it in. Well, they initiate a change order process where they'll diagnose the problem. Then somebody will call me and say, hey, you not only need a tune-up, you need brakes. I ask, what's the price? They don't give me an hourly rate. They give me a price so I can make the decision, and then I approve the change order. So they keep me in the driver's seat making the decision, the customer, but they have the pricing leverage because my car's on the rack torn apart. Of course, I'm going to authorize them to do it if it's a reasonable price and I can afford it. But that's how we solved it. We did change orders. They're a brilliant tool.
It can be challenging too, right? Because you might have a staff or a team who's face to face with the client, working day in and day out. How are we enabling the team to identify when there's scope creep, empowering them to speak up or escalate internally? What are those avenues? We came across that really early. We were planning for 2024 at the end of last year, and we're building all these revenue metrics or goals and all these, high in the sky ideas. And then we realized we have an infrastructure problem where once we onboard or sign a client, our team is like, what are we doing for them? What's in scope and what's out of scope? So we had to go through a whole process of, we're working through this now of adding somewhat SKUs to our internal items that we sell our customers. Are we doing AP work? Well, is that AP work managing their inbox, or is it managing a tool like Bill or Ramp? That's different time and requirements for the internal team. So it's kind of a full cycle motion of going back to making sure who's scoping the project really understands what it takes to deliver for those clients, and getting really nitty gritty around what it is that we'll be providing for them on a monthly basis.
And
we're still
educating, and educating the team on the scope creep when they see it. I mean, mechanics back off when they see it. They don't just go in and fix it. They'll go tell the service manager, hey, this is additional problem. If we can educate mechanics to do it, I think we can educate financial professionals to do it.
Yeah. And what we've done, and I actually provide some compensation and bonuses to my team members for that ownership or accountability, because I think it's a two-way street, right? I don't want to be hands-on with every single client, but I want them to feel some type of ownership on the files that they help manage day to day. And if they're able to communicate, hey, listen, my time's been increasing because of X, Y, or Z, or hey, the client's asking us to implement a new sales channel for e-commerce. Is that part of our scope? I like that conversation I have with my team member, and I want to reward that, right? So that's for us. We do this like two-way street where I feel that my team members getting accountability and ownership on the work that they're doing, but they also get rewarded by letting me communicating these, increases of scope of work. Stacey, I have to admit, your website is, I'm a big fan of not allocating pricing on my website, but the way you guys did it is actually so phenomenal. And guys, you got to check out fullsendfinance.com. I'm really curious as to just your decision making in regards to why allocate pricing on your website like that, but not only, but having the decision and mindset to do it like that. I thought it was so neat and so cool in regards to showing different examples, but also complexities and how one firm at one revenue level can be completely different than another firm. Can you tell me about like your firm's thoughts in regards to, has that been paying off well? Like why do it that way and so on?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you, first of all, for that compliment. On our website, we have a few different examples of maybe you're an e-commerce business at 5 million in revenue with X number of transaction volume. You may expect to pay in the range of the X to Y. Maybe we have a service-based company or a SaaS-based company, kind of complexity level. What we wanted to do was showcase that it's not black and white. You're not going to come in and get a fixed fee of $1,000 a month for our services. We're going to dig in deep and figure out how much work is going to be provided to give you that value that we're proposing to you. We did start Full Send with kind of those tiered structures, the startup plan, the scale plan, the go full send plan. And what that did is it communicated this lower price line. I think we started with maybe 500 to 1,000 a month as the baseline. Well, when a client comes in and sees that, they don't know whether they're in the startup or the scale plan because they don't understand the complexities and nuances of accounting and what we go through. So we decided to change that to be more relatable to the way that business owners think about their business. If they're like, okay, I look at revenue, I look at my complexity and my CPG company selling into retail stores, that is more complex. So we tried to give some examples to level the playing field around what generally can be expected. And it's fared well for us so far. We probably launched maybe almost a year now into that structure, but it's bringing us more clients that are aligned with the clients we want to work with, right? We're not getting clients who are the McDonald's of the world. That's not our target market. So it's almost a way to weed out different opportunities and, bring in those value-based clients that we're working toward.
I love that.
And,
yeah, I love that.
Andrew, I'm interested in your niche and when you decided to do it and what was the process?
Yeah. So, when I first started off, I'll be the first to say that my experience in the bookkeeping was very minimal. Like, working for a nonprofit is, you understand your AP, your AR, your payroll, but working for small businesses is very different. It's very different. And having to spend a lot of time learning, a lot of learning in regards to getting good at that. I realized that I started niching into like client personalities more than industries. So like, I realized with my personality, my sort of energy levels, I didn't want somebody who was kind of flat on the personality side. Like, for me to get excited to love what I do, I need to work with a client who is also getting passionate about systems like Dext and QuickBooks Online and bookkeeping. Like, I needed somebody who was as passionate, or at least loving my passion and energy. So I realized, I do work with more industries relative to our other clients. So like e-commerce and construction is like maybe 33% of our firm. But it's because those types of clients, those personalities, end up loving the technology and automation we can bring to the table. And for me, I love when a client is excited about the potential on moving to these new systems. Like, that excites me. And we can figure out the bookkeeping, learning knowledge on the industry side. That's usually not the hard part, but you can't change personality. You can't change that, like, how you communicate with the client if they understand your model. And I think it's so much harder to sort of change that perception as opposed to just learning a new industry. They're often quite similar, but it's the personality of the client for me that's like, I want people who are like good people who get excited about the potential of transitioning to like tech systems. And for me, it sounds a bit silly, but I try to niche into the type of client personality more than the industry itself.
No, that's phenomenal. I know a CPA down in Southern California, and his whole persona is a beach bum, and he wants customers that want to spend more time on the beach and surfing. He's got a very distinct personality he goes after, and it's working really well for him.
Yeah.
We have a similar mantra too, Andrew. It's we have a core value of a good neighbor, and it's being a good person, working, hiring, firing, and promoting across that good neighbor value. And I'm curious, for us, we had a client who we thought was great conversations. We worked with one person, but once we onboarded them, we started working with a different person internally, and we found out it was the opposite of what we thought. It was very hard to change behavior, very hard to adopt new systems, which obviously made our work a lot more involved than we anticipated in moving through new AP software, for example. We ended up letting go of that client because it went back to our, I guess you could call it our niche of being a good neighbor and kind of falling within that good human quality. Have you had that experience of having to fire any clients based on your niche specifically?
Yeah. So, I think I hear this all the time, and people in the chat are probably going to agree with me here. It's always uncomfortable. It's never fun to have that conversation to fire a client. But you are a business owner just as much as your client is, right? You need to protect your staff, yourself, your mental health, your profitability, your bottom line. And I think we have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in regards to those conversations. And it sucks, but it gets easier all the time. And absolutely, we've had to let clients go. I often let clients go more based on personality and fit that changes over time. Like you said, whether the client goes through a restructure, a new team member is being brought on who's now our liaison, who's not fitting well with us. And I think people need to really be okay with that. And it's tough. Your first few times is always uncomfortable. It sucks. You might cry. You might need some wine. You might need a shot of tequila, whatever you like helps you out there. That's okay. But it gets better. But trust me, when you let go of those clients, everyone already thinking about a client right now in their mind, it's like, oh yeah, this is a client that like we probably shouldn't be working with, but we still do for whatever reason. Doing that trigger of letting them go after the first 2 or 3 weeks, your life is so much easier. And I think, people have to do that type of difficult decision making, and it makes your life so much easier.
There's nothing more liberating than getting rid of a customer that doesn't fit. And I just want to make one other point on this. If you have a customer that you really, really deep down want to fire, like if you were to win the lottery tomorrow, you'd let them go. Don't try and mess with their price. Tripling their price isn't going to make them a better client. Sometimes it's not the price that's wrong, it's the customer that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And let them go. Life's too short.
Amen. We went through those conversations with the client. We ended up letting go of what if we just raise our price to XYZ and make it worthwhile. You can't solve for team sanity and working with behaviors, and you're going to build trust in your team if you're going to hire and fire and both internally and with your clients, kind of making sure you have their back, and we're operating and practicing what we preach.
I know that's
poison the well. Yeah,
I know that's one of the questions, Stacey, about how do you, develop and retain, top talent. One of the things that we teach is let your team decide who to fire. As a Christmas bonus, let them all fire one customer, because I promise they have somebody that they don't like working with, and boy, they'll fill that revenue hole really fast.
We identified that that's one piece that we didn't have in our process, was almost like the net promoter score, the NPS, of how satisfied are we with our clients and how satisfied do we think our clients are with us. That's one thing we're implementing this year, to have that almost KPI of how happy are we with different clients, how happy is the team, are they satisfied, so we can identify as we grow and scale which ones do we need to maybe step in, identify what's going wrong. Because when you have, growing number of clients, it's more difficult as you scale to know which clients may be more challenging.
Yeah. 100% agree. There was a good question or a comment in the chat a while ago about Jeremy mentioned about getting pricing wrong in the start is okay. And I do agree with that. I think, when I started my firm, I was like, okay, $200 a month. Like that's what I'm happy with in that moment, right? Like I felt that 6.5 years ago for what I thought I could accomplish, $200 a month made sense. After realizing about a year or two for what I really wanted to do with that client and the type of services and value I wanted to provide, $200 a month wasn't worth it for me. But you will make mistakes 100% in the early game in regards to that fixed or value pricing. And I think hopefully you built enough good rapport and goodwill with that client that you come to them and say, listen, I still want to work with you. However, when I initially quoted, I put this much, but your file is a bit more volume based on, looking into your QuickBooks, looking to your Zero file or whatever. I need to increase my price into X. But I think having that conversation is really important. But you will realize when you are transitioning to value fixed pricing for the first time, and Ron, I want to hear your opinion on this, but you probably, like I said, made a lot of mistakes. And I'm assuming when you made those mistakes, do you think it's best to eat the costs and just say it's a learning opportunity for us on the next quoting process? Or do you go back to the client directly and say, hey, listen, we are putting your pricing at X dollars per month, but I think we undershot ourselves here. Can we look to bump it up over the next 3 to 6 months? Like, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, it's changed because, like you said, we made every mistake under the sun. But the important thing is to realize that pricing is a dynamic process. It should change all the time. Somebody in the chat asked the difference between fixed price and value price. Fixed price, you could build a fixed price by estimating hours. You could have productized services. You could have a punch list of what it costs for certain types of services and just give a fixed price. That's a fixed price. Value pricing is when you sit down and you price the customer, not the services. That's the difference between fixed pricing and value pricing. Value pricing is customized to one particular customer. And pricing, you're always going to be adjusting your pricing, and it's not written in stone. It can be increased. You can easily increase your prices. Now, that's going to cause some friction with current customers, but sometimes you need that friction because if they don't like the price, then it's probably time to sever the relationship.
I'm curious if you've, Ron or Andrew, have thought about a framework. This is something we're working on building out, is how do we put a framework in place where on a certain cadence throughout the year, we're analyzing client prices, right? We're also busy. It's really hard to come back to and say, okay, it's time to raise prices. So what are some framework ideas you can put in place to say, maybe it's every 1-year anniversary, maybe it's every October, maybe it's XYZ. What framework can you put in place? And how are you identifying when clients are over or underpriced in that process?
So I do two things. One, I guarantee ourselves a 4% annual increase no matter what. So like just because at the end of the day, that's just natural price increases at the firm between pay my staff more, subscriptions, XYZ. Like no matter what, every single client is getting a bare minimum 4% increase. What I do is I have my team track their time by client, not to micromanage them or to make sure they're hitting their metrics, but it's a really good way for me to analyze how much time my team is spending on that client. And my assumption is always my team is doing a good job. So if they're spending more time on a client over a quarter, that tells me that compared to the prior quarter, if that increases by 25%, it's not my team member is super slow and not doing a great job. It's probably because there's something going on in the file that's adding more work. And because I'm not always involved with every single client every single day or every week, this allows me to analyze my data to quickly determine, and you can use a platform like Financial Sense or ClickUp, something where your team can track their time. I do this on a monthly and quarterly basis to really analyze how much time am I spending per month. And then I have internal trigger points where after a quarter, if we're spending more than X hours, then that needs to tell me I need to jump in more to figure out where are those time entries being allocated towards and what type of conversation I need to have with the client directly. And that's been great. I think when I do that, it's it's important because I have data to back it up. I'm not just coming out of thin air being like, oh, I'm going to increase your pricing by 20%. It's like, no, I'm actually like, I have data to back it up, but it's not to put micromanagement type of feeling to my staff, but it's to give them, because at the end of the day, if I increase their pricing, they get rewarded because I do profit sharing in my firm for all my staff as well. So it's like, if I'm increasing the pricing of the client, it's not like the team member doesn't get any rewards there. Like they get a piece of that pie too. So that's the way I do it. I'm really curious how you guys have done it currently or in the past. I'm really curious about that.
I'm curious, Ron, if you're, how you're feeling about Andrew and I tracking hours, not the
Oh,
billable hour, but tracking time for that benefit.
that's a whole nother conversation. I'm thoroughly against it. I think there's better measurements you could look at. There's other KPIs you can look at. There's other systems you could use, like after action reviews, to monitor pricing and capture knowledge from the team to improve in the future. But Stacey, we have some great questions in the Q&A box. I would just love to just kind of run through them real quick if you guys have anything to say. But
let's do it. Let's just jump into it.
Justin asked a really good one. He says, is there a place for an all-inclusive service package? This is kind of like the all-you-can-eat Netflix approach. Justin, there is. I've been thinking a lot about this. I just wrote a book called Time's Up. It's on the subscription-based business model for professionals. And this is already being done. It's being done in the medical profession. You can subscribe to a general physician and get whatever they can do. There's the scope limitation. You're not going to get heart surgery. You're not going to get oncology, but whatever they do that you need, when you need it, you're covered. And these doctors are flourishing. There's over 2,200 of them across all 50 states, and they're doing a great job. So yes, there is a model for that, but it's a different business model. And then Alfred asked, he's starting a CPA practice. Value pricing seems more complex. I would still do it, Alfred. I would still say you want to price the customer, not the services. Either way, you do want to give a fixed price. Don't price things by the hour, because that's uncertainty to the customer. And that's why it's not a good customer service experience for them, because they never know what the bill is until they get the bill. And you don't want to find out they don't like your price after you've done all the work. You want to find that out beforehand so you can adjust and maybe make better decisions.
And Stell asked that, or mentioned that they do value priced at their firm, but how do we teach a team member to do this? And they feel like fixed pricing would be easier to train for. Multiple different ways. The way we approach this is the team doing the work is not the team setting the price. We have a separate team doing the scoping. We have a separate team managing, that's sales process informed by the work that the team is providing, but segregating that way each individual person isn't a master of all certain things across the business.
Yeah. And Bill Robinson, Bill, you must be Canadian because you mentioned Roger Martin. That is so funny. I'm showing a video on him tomorrow here in New Jersey that he did on the difference between strategy and planning, which is absolutely brilliant. But you're right about business model innovation. That's really critical. And that's what my new book is about. I hate to keep plugging the book, but Time's Up deals with exactly what you're asking in this question. New KPIs, new systems like after action reviews, things like that. And it's a completely different business model. It doesn't put the emphasis on the services anymore. And I know that sounds heretical, but I think there's something more that we as professionals bring to the table, which is we're able to transform our customers from where they are to where they want to be, some desired future state. And we can guide those transformations. And we can do it from womb to tomb, especially when you're niched like Stacey and Andrew are. And I think that's the highest point of value. And when we do that, the customer's the product and the services are just a means to the end. It's a new way of thinking about it. It flips everything on its head, but that's, I think, where we're headed as a profession. We got to start thinking about how we transform our clients and change their lives, make them healthier, wealthier, and wiser, because we're in a privileged position to do it.
Yeah, the amount of times I tell my team and my clients, I'm very like, there's a lot of power that we have on our end, and how we utilize that power for the betterment of that relationship with the client. But I love that you said some amazing things, wound to tomb, and the client being the product. I agree. I think more so than ever, bookkeeping and accounting isn't slowing down, right? I think we went literally through a pandemic where our services were needed more now than ever. And so, we need to sort of slightly evolve in regards to how we visualize what the pricing strategy is and what type of product or service we want to provide to our clients. And it's exciting and it's overwhelming too, to be fair. I would say, guys, at the end of the day, there are some amazing people out here who can give you different opinions and you will know over time what fits your specific model. And I agree with Ron in regards to the hourly pricing model. It's not something that made sense to me. I just, at the end of the day, I don't want to be stuck with saying, this is my hourly rate. It's like, and I think it goes to one of Lindsay's questions, which is, do you drop prices if employees are spending less time than anticipated? And the answer is no, because what I try to do is I say, during certain moments where I might spend 20 or 15 minutes doing this specific task, like analysis, let's say I'm trying to analyze the client's books, I might say, here, I'm able to spend a bit more time freely, knowing that, at the end of the day, they're still appreciating the end result. But if our team gets better and more efficient on a client's books, which will happen, I don't go back and say, I'm reducing your pricing, because we're getting more knowledgeable. And when they ask us a question about their books, we're going to be more responsive and more accurate in our answer. We shouldn't get penalized for being better at our jobs. And I think that's the beautiful thing about fixed and value pricing, is that over time, your margins do get better, right? Like your bottom line should be getting stronger over time as you continue to work on those specific files, because you're more comfortable with it, you're better at it, and hopefully that relationship even gets stronger from that end result too.
I'm really interested, both of you, because I know you're really into automation and tech stacks, and with all the new AI coming down the pike, ChatGPT, the bots, just bank feeds, even the moving to the cloud, all of technology eats hours. It eats it. And there's no way we can stay in a we sell time business model. So how do you see technology driving changes in pricing?
Stacey, you go first on this one. I'm curious to hear your answer.
Sure. I mean, I think that they're in conflict with one another. If you have an hourly model, your team is not going to be empowered to leverage new technology and new ways of doing things. So you almost can't have one without the other on the hourly business model front. And that's why we love value-based pricing, because it allows our team to leverage these new technologies, identify easier and more efficient ways to do things, make their lives easier, and make things better for the client as well. There is an influx of software and ways of doing things. I think what we try to do, and this is an evolving process over time, is get ideas around new systems, new process, learn from other industry leaders. What are the systems that people are using that they've really enjoyed? What are ones that firm owners don't enjoy? We're leveraging our community a lot in finding out what tools are working and what ones maybe aren't the best for automation. We think a lot about, we have reviews on what are those really manual pain points? What are you doing, internal team, on a monthly cadence that's just not value add and just very tedious? And we're reflecting on those things, and those to our team indicates we can solve via technology. An example of that is, how can we use Zapier to zap automation in the client onboarding process? So let's say a client is signs a contract, they're ready to be onboarded. Well, that should kick off internal automations. Create a Google Drive folder, create folders within that folder, drop in the customer contract, create a work template within Financial Sense so the team knows there's an onboarding project. Create a Slack channel for that client so there's a centralized place. All of those manual, non-value add things that need to happen every single time, those are the things that we're trying to be proactive about identifying that we can use technology and automation to solve. And I think it goes into two places. One is, how can we internally automate process? And two is, how can we automate client-facing work? Like Ron, you mentioned bank feeds or Maybe it's using Bookkeep for CPG companies. There's many different ways to leverage automation across both client-facing and internal-facing projects.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. And I'm always in awe of how different firms utilize technology and automation with like Zapier. It's always been so fascinating. It's something I really want to dive into in the future. For us, when I analyze a tech company in regards to, is it something I want to implement? I have like internally 3 criteria that need to be met. So there's three I try to look for, at least 2 need to be met. One is like, is it going to improve the quality of our data? 2, will it improve efficiencies? Then 3, does it make our lives easier? Because like at the end of the day, that's really important. Because my team, to want them to embrace technology, there needs to be some benefit for them too, right? And to your point, Stacey, I 100% agree with that. So if those, at least 2 of those 3 are met, then I start looking at cost. So like I even talked about what it costs to implement that technology. It's just purely, quality, efficiencies, and does it make our lives easier? Then at that point, I start figuring out, okay, does it financially make sense to implement it? But when you have platforms out there like Financial Sense and Bookkeep, which are amazing platforms, which hit 3 out of the 3, there's a certain point where you're silly not to embrace and utilize some of these platforms out there. Like I could not imagine working with e-commerce clients without a platform like Bookkeep. I could not imagine trying to manage our firm's tasks and projects without a platform like Financial Sense. And I think these are platforms that if you're not using now and you want to scale, right? But even you're a solopreneur, you absolutely should be looking to embrace a few critical pieces of automation and technology, even at a baseline, because without it, you're probably eating up a lot of time that you could be allocating towards other more exciting things in your firm. And I think, automation can feel scary. AI can sound scary, but I think we're in a revolutionary time where things are going to get even more exciting in the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm really, really stoked to see how things play out in the next little while.
Likewise, we've already seen such advancements in the last year alone with new softwares, new tech coming out. The one piece of advice I would give anyone who's looking at new softwares is, no software is going to solve all of your problems. There's always going to be some limitation. So it's almost going through the vetting process to find that software that hits the majority of those boxes that you need at your firm, and then running with it and solving those gaps elsewhere. But 2 is to not jump into different softwares too quickly. We can see, let's say, new software, jump into it, new software, jump into it. And to your point, Andrew, there is a cost associated with that. So, it's being thoughtful around what benefit does this provide? Is it worth it for my firm? Does it benefit my team? Having an actual process to assess new softwares and ways of automation, making sure it's hitting those, key points that are issues within your firm. There's got to be a framework around implementing new software, building out the automation, because your business is going to continue to change. So you need to make sure you're picking those softwares and those automation tools for scalability as well.
Yeah, I agree. Ron, Stacey, do you guys have any thoughts to Fred's question about gross margin? So, internally, I try to attain a certain like owner net profit, gross profit margin in my business, just as a goal, as a metric. I don't always analyze, like I'm fine with not having very strong gross profit margins on a client. If I love that client and they make our lives so much easier, I'm fine with saying, listen, I'm happy to have a 35% gross profit margin on a client that is just so easy to deal with. Internally, what are your thoughts? Like, I do try to attain a metric for myself to have a goal every year. But if I don't hit that goal, I'm not like, oh man, I had an awful year. We try to do about 40-45% margins on our end. Net at the bottom line is what we aim toward. I'm curious, is that a metric that you guys really try to analyze? What are your thoughts there?
Go ahead, Stacey.
For us, we are in year 2 of business. And in our second year, our priority was the infrastructure, building out the internal team, building out the automations for scalability. With that, our 2025 goal is going to be to assess margins and efficiency with the team. So we haven't set clear, expectations around margin. 60% gross, 40% net would be fantastic. But because our priorities lie around building the infrastructure for scale in 2024, it hasn't been something we've measured very, very closely just yet. But I mean, Ron, you may have some more feedback on just industry targets, things to look for, and kind of how to more broadly answer that question.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to strategy and positioning. If you're Southwest Airlines or you're United Airlines, they're going to have completely different pricing strategies and hence different margin goals. So really, when you think about pricing from a macro standpoint, there's only three pricing strategies. You can have a penetration pricing strategy where the focus is you're trying to grow top line revenue and market share. This would be Walmart. This would be Southwest, usually commanding a lower price, but you're trying to grow and scale as fast as you can. Then there's a neutral pricing strategy where you kind of take price out of the picture and emphasize other things like customer service and experience and your tech stack or your ease of use or all of those things. Toyota is a great example of a company that doesn't really emphasize price. They emphasize total cost of ownership being cheaper over the lifetime because quality parts and less maintenance and all of that, higher trade-in value. And then there's skim pricing. If you're Apple, if you're FedEx, if you're Disney, you're going to charge a very high price and, you know, have very fat margins like Apple and Google do. But you have to choose one of those three pricing strategies, but that's dictated by what your strategy and positioning is in the market. Morton's has a skim pricing strategy. McDonald's has a penetration pricing strategy. It's completely different. So it's kind of an unanswerable question without knowing more about your firm and your strategy and your goals.
Yeah, and ties it all back to whether or not niching is a good idea. So if you have a niche, you can more easily identify standard gross margins across the entire firm versus individual business line segments.
And I think niching is a good idea in general because, you know, I think there's extreme niching, which is like, I only work with one industry. And that is not for me. At the end of the day, the more I can learn in this industry for a bookkeeper, as an accountant, as a tax preparer, the better I can provide answers and knowledge to my other clients. But if a pandemic happens and you're all in on restaurants and something like that happens, you do risk that, you know, component where you're tied in too much into one industry. But niching is good in the sense where if you're really good at working with three industries, it makes it easier to do your job. And, you know, when you're constantly learning all the time, it is tough to always trying to be learning bookkeeping for different industries. And that can get overwhelming and tiring and exhausting. So it is not a bad idea to say, I'm really good and I really enjoy working with these 2 or 3 types of industries. And there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm going to try to focus more of my energy and time in these areas, because that's good. You become an expert, you can start charging more, and you start then having those referrals be in that same network as well. So it becomes a cycle at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested, you guys, both of your experience with niching. One of the things it does, I mean, I think it gives you more pricing power because you're seen as an expert. Specialists are more valuable usually than generalists, but it also expands your geographical base. I mean, I know, you know, firms that do microbreweries, one in Florida, he's got customers around the world, New Zealand, Australia. He doesn't necessarily do the tax work, but he's an expert in the microbrewery business. And it just, I mean, we'll all fly to the Mayo Clinic to see a specialist, but I'm not going to do that for my general practitioner. So I'm interested in your geographical spread when you niche. Do you find that you're getting clients around the world?
For us, we're specific to the US because of those different, you know, primarily GAAP requirements. We're good at that. We prioritize that, but we don't have any national, you know, geographic requirements. We'll work with anyone across the US. And it's really, are they, you know, a good neighbor? Are they willing to grow and to scale their company? That's
How about you, Andrew?
Yeah, so Cornwall is a population of 40,000. So it's pretty small. And we have no e-commerce business at all physically in our area. Like at the end of the day, you just don't have the infrastructure in Cornwall to do it well. We might have some micro e-commerce businesses doing like 100K a year. But when we got our first e-commerce business in Toronto, that one client has like allowed us to get 3-4 other clients because of referrals, just natural referrals, to the point where, you know, as I mentioned, I think a quarter of our clients are e-commerce. None of them are like not even an hour away from us. Like they're all at least an hour away from us. I haven't even physically seen in person any of our e-commerce clients. So, it allowed us to branch out of our geographical region, where if I was only working with businesses in Cornwall, Ontario, I'd be limiting myself in an extreme amount of what types of businesses and industries are even available in my area. But not only that, there are certain industries like e-commerce that the scalability is on their end is so massive, where we worked with a client that was $500,000 a year in revenue 5 years ago. Now they're able to do 20 million a year in revenue, and we're still working with them. But our pricing has gone from $700 a month to $3,000 a month. And they still love working with us and vice versa. So, certain industries allow that scalability as well. And that's always exciting for me. I think there's nothing wrong with working with businesses that are very consistent year over year. But when you work with certain industries that they can double up in revenue, triple in revenue year over year, that can get exciting because it means it gives you more opportunity to provide those additional services or value added components that you wouldn't be able to provide a 200K a year business, a 500K a year business. So I think, about 70, 80% of our clients are not even in our physical area at this point. So it's Canada's pretty wide, but yeah, so it's super exciting.
On that front, there's a couple questions related to niching in the chat. Let's see, we have Daniel asked, can you share your thoughts on if a niche bookkeeping practice can exist within a traditional tax firm? Curious how you deal with tax returns internally or outsource/partner.
Ooh. Do you guys do taxes?
We don't do taxes.
We do. It's about 15% of our revenue. It's always a pain in the ass. Taxes is always like, it's such a disruptor to our firm. And every year I'm like crying internally, like, do I even want to do this year? Because you go from like a good flow of work with clients throughout the year, virtual clients, portals, no in-person, no phone calls, just it's consistent. All of a sudden you get this surge of people with physical paper and dropping things off and calling you. And it's like, I want to sit down meeting. It's like, no, you don't. But we have an hourly component when we do charge taxes, but we no matter what, we have base minimum pricing for us to get excited to work with a tax client. But be very careful. What I'll say is, if you're in Canada and the States, if you're a bookkeeping firm and you want to bring taxes on, it's a disruptor. It's an insane disruptor. So just be very careful, because you'll work with different sets of people that you might not be fully accustomed to. And that could be good or it can go really bad. So just be very careful.
So, Andrew, you have tax customers that aren't necessarily bookkeeping customers?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
one thing that I think you could do is you could say, we'll only do your tax return if you're a bookkeeping customer.
I know.
Yeah.
That'd be a good answer. It's a lot of my team members really enjoy taxes, and they really want to keep pushing me, and I love them so much that I always said, okay, fine, this is our last year, we'll see what happens. And every year I have this conversation with them. It's always a cycle.
No, it is possible though. There are a lot of firms out there that have both, and they do great.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
All right, we've got about 7 minutes left, and we have quite a few questions in the Q&A. So I think we should do a little rapid fire.
Let's do it.
Get through some of these questions. Denise's question is very similar to what we just talked about. Denise is in Alberta. How do you manage value-based pricing when a client delays bringing in their work and their expectations of timelines?
If they're delay, I still charge them. And, I establish the timelines. If they want different timelines, we charge them more. So every client month end is done by the 20th of the month. They want it the 12th. Hey, fine. But we're going to charge you because now you're disrupting and you're changing our internal workflow, and you now are a priority over other clients. So you have to pay for that. It's pretty simple how we do it.
Yeah. And I think it's even easier, Denise, than that, because with value pricing or fixed pricing, you already know the price up front. Make them pay 100% before they give you anything. Mm-hmm. And it's not an issue. You've got the cash, and let them take their time getting their stuff to you.
Agreed. All right, Fred, we have experienced challenging in the last few years in hiring and retaining entry-level bookkeepers. It's been difficult to scale. We're moving to an offshore model for entry-level / non-client facing folks. Have you seen this strategy used to good effect?
All my team is, in my area, all physical, they're all full time. I don't hire contractors, but I know a lot of people love the outsourcing model, offshore, out of North America, or within North America. I can't speak on that. Maybe you guys have any thoughts there?
Yeah,
I,
I'm going to also add in another question related to that. Justin's asking that he and his partner are in a pivotal point regarding their first hire and struggling to figure out who that should be. Should it be a senior? Should it be an entry-level role? For us, what we did for our first hire, outside of the two partners, is we realized we are a higher tier firm. We do provide higher value services, and we wanted a team member to come in and be able to jump in on those tasks. So we hired a director level person as our first hire to help us build the firm, help us internalize those issues in the process, help us really be an advocate for scaling Full Send. And now from there, we're in the process of bringing on team members from Buenos Aires. So we have a team member now in the Philippines who's doing bank recs, staff accountant level work, and we're hiring a senior accountant and a staff accountant in Buenos Aires. Starts next week and the following week after. We have a really high commitment to quality, so we're kind of trial and erroring whether or not the quality is there. Is it an individual person challenge, or is it a cultural thing and things that we don't maybe like the internal communications. We're working through all of that because we want our firm to feel like one firm, one centralized company. So whether or not the team is in Buenos Aires or the Philippines, we're on Slack, we're on email, we're having these type of face-to-face meetings remotely. And to us, that's our solution, because I agree that it's really hard to find staff level support in the US who's happy in that role for a long time. And it's the core and the foundation of what we do. That's the first line of defense in accounting, is managing that bank feed and those transactions. So it's a critical role.
We hired, my first staff was somebody I went to college with. So I told that person, so listen, I I have no idea what I'm doing, but do you want to come on the journey with me? And I'll make sure you're treated well, you're paid well. And they're like, okay, cool. And then they're still here, 5.5 years later. I think the first hire, in my opinion, is the most important. I think if you can try to spend a bit more time, you might have to pay them a bit more. But when your firm is at that point where you need somebody, trust me, if you're trying to spend 10 hours a week training somebody for 3-4 months, it's going to eat your time up, and you might create resentment. It might not work out well. You might want to find somebody who's not purely junior, who's very, very new at this. Maybe somebody who has a bit of experience under the belt. It might make your life a lot easier in the long run, for sure.
And enable scalability, right?
Scalability. Yeah.
All right, we only have a few minutes left. Let's see. Ron, did you see any answers you're excited about?
Yeah, Angela, on the cannabis, your manufacturing and dispensaries, I do think that's a perfect thing for subscription model. You might want to look into that. Again, I have a book on it called Time's Up, but on our radio show, thesoulofenterprise.com, you can find many episodes that we've done on the subscription model and how it's completely different than the value pricing model. It's got different KPIs. The accounting is even different. It's just a completely different way of running a firm. But I think it's perfect for the cannabis niche, which is a great niche, by the way.
Love that. We have a question on individual apps. So Heloise asked, do we use multiple apps based on our clients, or do we migrate our clients to minimize the apps that our team has to learn and understand?
I really try to standardize our firm. We're a QBO firm, we're a bookkeep firm, we're a Dext firm, one payroll company. We try to really standardize it, because trust me, that's how errors happen when your team member is trying to learn 2 different accounting systems, 2 different payroll systems, receipt systems, AP systems, it becomes very difficult to do that very well at. So we really try to standardize it, and you will lose opportunities to price out clients if you don't specialize or don't work with the zero business. That's okay. It's trust me, learning another accounting system and how that works is very difficult and time consuming. You as an owner might be saying, okay, I want to do it. But when you're trying to scale and bring another team member who now has got to learn 2 accounting systems, it's going to be a disaster in my opinion. So, we purposely have said we're working with QBO. I don't work with any desktop clients, nothing, like zero, because I look at it and I start clicking around. I'm like, how are people loving this software? People love it, and that's great. But like for me, going from QBO to QBD is like, what the hell is going on? So I protected our firm by saying we only work with certain types of apps, and you will migrate it to it, or we won't work with you.
I think we could have chatted all day about scalability.
But
Oh yeah.
This was
it's a big issue.
Thank you all for joining. Hopefully we had some good tidbits and information. Ron, please share how people can reach out to you, how they can connect with you outside of the podcast.
I'm on X at Ronald Baker. You can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm one of the influencers. I've got lots of blog posts up there. And you can also check out thesoulofenterprise.com. And also my new book, Time's Up. It's got a club associated with it. So it's timesupclub.com. And there's a free forever tier where you'll get immediately additional resources on the subscription business model.
Awesome. So many places. Andrew, how can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me in Toronto in a week and a half from now and QuickBooks Connect. Reach out to me by email, check out our website. I want to thank, Financial Sense and Bookkeep for having us. These are 2 amazing platforms that I would highly recommend to utilize, whether you're a solopreneur or a firm with 10, 20, 40 staff. They will make your lives easier. That's a guarantee, 100%.
Agreed. Can't agree more. Thank you both, Bookkeep, Financial Sense. If you'd like to connect, Stacey Feldman, CPA on LinkedIn. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks,
this was
everyone.
Amazing. Good job, everyone.
It was great. Great. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Stacey. That was
Thanks,
fun.
Ron. Thanks, Stacey. Lori, Tosin. Thanks, guys. Have a great afternoon, great day, whatever time it is. And we'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.